Welcome to the Mid Week Tease with me, Adelle Onyango, where I share some random and not too random thoughts on things. And in this episode, I want to talk about boundaries again, because that's how important these things really are. But this time around, we'll dive into, yes, the types of boundaries and a few tips that I want to share with you. But what I really want to drive home is that boundaries will cost you relationships. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Because for a lot of us, the fear isn't in actually setting the boundary. And this is what I experienced. The fear was, what if they leave? Or what if they misunderstand me and start thinking that maybe I don't love them? What if I lose people and I'm all alone? Now, in case you're not an OG member of this Legally Clueless Africa family, let me just set the context of when I was doing my boundary work. I started actively doing it in the middle of my divorce. And so it was happening in the middle of me losing a marriage, transitioning into a different world of life that I didn't understand or know, I had no contact with. And at that same time, when you're losing so much normalcy, I was readjusting all of the relationships around me because of the boundary work that I was doing in therapy. And so I was grieving a marriage, which triggered other grief, like grieving my mom, grieving my dad. And then now you're telling me to put in place boundaries, which could mean that I lose more people. Are you crazy? And I think I really resisted my therapist, Faith, when she was, just exposing how grave my situation was, because I really had a lack of boundaries. And at first I was resistant because I really was scared of losing people. And I know you might be facing that fear as well when you think about setting boundaries. Your fear is not the actual setting, it's being misunderstood and losing people. So because of that, what happens is that you then stay available, you stay agreeable, palatable, and really you stay uncomfortable. But the truth is that you can either keep everyone comfortable or you can start choosing yourself. You really can't do both. And if we bring it down to women, I read something somewhere that really stuck with me, and it said, as women, you can either set the boundary or have an autoimmune disease. Because that's what the data is showing, right? Like, because of the social and cultural influences and conditioning, women make up 80% of the people with autoimmune diseases, right? So when you abandon self, you could very, very easily be choosing an unhealthy path for you. And abandoning yourself is almost synonymous with you not having boundaries. So I think a lot of us misunderstand boundaries, right? They are not about controlling other people. They're not punishments. And it's not you being difficult or selfish. Boundaries are about you. They're about what you allow, what you are available for, how you choose to show up. It's really about you saying, this is what works for me and this is what doesn't work for me. But I know when I'm saying it, you're like, it sounds so simple, right? But it's so difficult. So why is it so hard? It's because many of us were taught either directly or indirectly that love looks like being easy, being agreeable, being available, not causing problems, right? Love looks like you always picking the call when I phone you. Love looks like you always agreeing to show up to my gigs, to my family functions, to my emergencies, whenever, wherever, regardless of what's happening with you. So when you start setting boundaries, it doesn't just feel like there's like a behavioral change. It feels like you're risking connection. You're going against what you were taught love looks like. And so your brain is literally going, if I say no, will they stay? And that's scary and that's difficult. And that's why you find yourself saying yes, even when you're exhausted, or like someone says something that hurts you and you're laughing it off, or you're even avoiding conversations that you know you need to have, right? And there are many types of boundaries and they show up in many different ways in our lives, right? So sometimes there is time boundaries. This looks like not being available all the time, not attending everything, saying, I can't make it today, I need to rest. And even that can feel uncomfortable because you're used to always showing up. But type number one that I'm sharing with you is time boundaries. So, what do you need to enforce around your time so that you are living a comfortable life that honors you and your time? Sometimes it's emotional boundaries. This is where you stop being everyone's therapist. You stop carrying everyone's problems. Yeah, you're an empath. Yeah, people open up to you. But this is when you say, I care about you, but I don't have the capacity for this right now. And I actually set an emotional boundary at the end of last year. Someone called me and was just like piling a lot of things they were experiencing. And one of the things was very, very serious. And I actually used these words. I said, it would be irresponsible of both you and I to sit with this alone. We need to tag in a professional. And I don't have the capacity for this. Okay. So that's an emotional boundary. Sometimes it's communication boundaries, right? How people speak to you. And this is where you say, I'm open to this conversation, but not if I'm being spoken to like that. And this is where you realize that you don't have to tolerate disrespect just to keep the peace. I've had one of these situations where I had to put up a boundary when it came to how I was being communicated with, right? I was on a phone call where someone was yelling and yelling at me, and I asked them repeatedly to change their tone so that we could have the conversation, and they did not. And so I said, if you don't stop yelling, I'm going to hang up. And they kept yelling. So what did I do? I hang up. That particular person has never yelled at me again. Never. Not after that boundary. I think I always go back whenever I feel guilt over setting a boundary. That's one of the examples I go back to because I saw this person change their behavior towards me because I had set a boundary and I followed through with it. Sometimes it can be energy boundaries, protecting your peace, choosing not to engage in conversations or environments that you know are going to drain you. It's you saying, I'm not going to attend everything. I'm not going to respond to everything. I'm not going to give everyone access to me. It's where you say, those people in your lives who are constantly baiting you into arguments, and you say, you know what? I don't have to honor every invitation to something that's going to drain my energy. And then there are financial boundaries. And this one is real for very many people because we come from communities where supporting family is normal and it's almost expected, even. And some family members can feel entitled to it, like financial support. And yes, you want to help, right? So it's a catch-22 and you're very uncomfortable. I know we're having a lot of these black tax conversations now, right? You earn, you help, you grow, you carry others with you. This is expected. And it comes from love, but it can also become heavy, right? You find yourself sending money even when it stretches you. You're getting into debt because of it, and then you feel like you can't say no. But you can still love people and have limits. Supporting people doesn't mean draining yourself. And saying, I'm not in a position to send money right now doesn't mean that like you don't care. It means you're also prioritizing your stability. And it's very okay. I think this is what I do. I have a percentage that I don't go over because I broke my financial boundary into an actual amount. And whether it's supporting a relative, whether there's a wedding, chango, or if there is a funeral kitty we're contributing to, I will not go above a particular percent, a particular amount. That is my boundary. Okay. There's also physical boundaries. I feel like there's so many types. We can't cover all of them in this episode, but these are, I guess, some of my favorite or the ones I've interacted with. There's physical boundaries. And it's often ignored, right? Because we're taught to be polite, to hug when we don't want to tolerate physical closeness that feels uncomfortable. It's frowned upon if you move far away from your main core community, whether your family, etc. are. But to be honest, when you feel discomfort, your body knows. It even tells you. Your body is so intelligent. And the discomfort in your body is information, right? You are allowed to say, I'm not a hugger. You are allowed to say, please don't comment on my body. You are allowed to say, I need some space. You are allowed to say, I want to move to this and this area. Access to you is not automatic. If you don't want it, you are well within your right to voice it. And there's even like mental boundaries, right? Where you're protecting your mind. Not every opinion deserves space in your head. Not every conversation deserves your energy. You don't have to engage in gossip. You don't have to internalize everything people say about your life. You get to choose what you carry mentally. Now, when you start setting boundaries, people react. People react because boundaries change access. That's literally it, right? So people who are used to unlimited access to you, now they don't have it. So of course it's like, hey, what's happening? The people who benefited from your overgiving, they feel that there's a shift. I don't have the access to the overgiving anymore and I don't like it. And to them, your boundaries might feel like rejection and they may react in response to what they think is rejection. But that doesn't mean you're wrong, hey? It just means the dynamic is changing. And I remember when I was first putting in place boundaries and I was stumbling around and like the people react. People react. And not all reactions are malicious. It's actually quite human. It took me some time to understand that. It's actually quite human. It doesn't mean the person is bad. And it doesn't mean that you need to stop your boundary. It just means there's discomfort. But if you give it time, just give it time. The people who care about you will adjust. And the ones who don't, you will know that their access to your overgiving or whatever the situation was is more important to them than your mental and physical and emotional health. And you probably don't want a person like that in your life. Pretty simple, right? But that really does come with time. And then there's the guilt, hey? So you say no and then you overthink it. You know what I'm talking about, right? You set a boundary and then immediately you're like, oh shit, it's too harsh, it's too harsh. I need to soften it, you know? You wonder if maybe your tone was too much. And I feel like that really is not you reconsidering, it's more cognitive dissonance, right? It's the old version of you, the one who is always available, the one who is always agreeable, clashing with the new version of you. It's growing pains, right? And it feels uncomfortable. But again, discomfort doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you're doing something different. And yes, of course, boundaries will change your relationships. Some of them will change for the better. They will deepen. Trust me, I've seen this with some of my closest friends. Some of the relationships will fade, and that's okay. Some of the relationships will end, And that's okay, because healthy relationships adjust. They will respect your boundaries and they will make space for this new version of you. And the unhealthy relationships will resist. They will guilt trip you. They will try to pull you back. Again, I ask, which type of relationships do you want around you then, between those two? So how do you start? To be honest, I think if I could redo my boundary work, I would start small. I think I went in, guns blazing, but also because I was in dire situations. It was a hectic time. Hectic times call for hectically big responses. But I think I would start small, hey? I don't think it really works well when you overhaul your entire life overnight. I think start by setting small boundaries, not long paragraphs, just, hey, that doesn't work for me. Hey, I'm not available for that. I'll get back to you. Give me some time to think about it. And once you start small and you see the results of that and you stay consistent, then you can build the energy and the fuel to move to the bigger boundaries. You know what I mean? And I also feel like these small statements are quite powerful. Even just sharing some of them with you have reminded me of how they uncovered to me that one of the closest relationships I had was terribly unhealthy. This person said something that was mean and it hurt me. And I said, actually, it was a phone call. They said something mean that hurt me. And I had to first check in with myself to listen to the discomfort in my body. And so the phone call ended and I checked in with myself and I was like, we didn't like that, right? And my body is like responding in discomfort, like, yes, that wasn't cool. And so I called them back and I said, hey, I didn't really appreciate when you said da 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 because it was mean and it hurts me. And there was no space for my boundaries in that relationship. It became very clear that this was an unhealthy space. And so I feel like that's also the power of boundaries. Sometimes it's not very clear which relationships around you are unhealthy, but when you set a boundary, their response will really, really give you more insights into this relationship. And so, yeah, boundaries will cost you relationships, but they will build your self-respect, and the relationships that are right for you will not require you to abandon yourself to keep them. So I guess what I want you to take away from this episode is, if you are setting boundaries right now or you're about to and it's feeling uncomfortable, if people are reacting and saying you've changed, what's happening, if things feel like they're shifting, just take a breath. You are not doing it wrong. You're just no longer available for what's draining you. And that's where your life really starts to change for the better. So keep going. Please keep going. Do not live a life without boundaries, because that's synonymous with abandoning yourself. I hope you connected with this episode, and if you loved it, please share it with somebody else that you love. Thanks for listening to the Mid Week Tease, a Legally Clueless Africa production. Episodes go out every Wednesday, and you can learn more about us by going to legallycluelessafrica.com.